Thank you very much for having us here. And I live in Dubai. When I left, it was 46 degrees. So thanks for making it feel like home here. We're actually starting to open up those little goals over there, so I hope it will get better so we can have you energetic when it comes to questions. I actually won't show you slides. I thought it might be a good idea to quickly try and take you through what is it that we're going to be talking about and why is that important. And so I'll just move from slide to slide really and show you some of what we talk about. So as Eric said in his video, this is a big moment for Google. So we say that today we're starting our office in Ukraine, but we had Dimitri here for, what, 4 years? I don't know what that means. So was Dimitri not in an office, or is Dimitri not from Google? So basically, when we announce an office, it means that the size of investment from Google is coming to the point where we believe we can start to meet the market expectations. When we open an office in any country in the world, people start to really get excited about doing things with Google. And normally when we have 1 people, 2 people, and so on, it's a little hard to meet this expectation. So I believe we're now in a good shape to do that. When it comes to what Google's role in those markets are, there are really 2 sides, right? One is Google's mission. So the first task I always get from Eric Schmidt when we open a new market is realize Google's mission. Before you do anything else, the mission has to happen. And the mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, right? So we want to organize the world information, we want to organize the Ukrainian information, and we want to make that available to people in Ukraine. When we do that, the other side of Google really is the whole idea of engine of economic growth. So Google plays a very significant part in every country we go to in terms of helping businesses, especially small and medium businesses, become more accessible and more successful. So our talk today is really aimed at helping the Ukrainian community understand the magnitude and the size of the internet and what's really happening on the internet, but also help them understand how we can use the internet for business, okay? So when it comes to the consumer internet, I think you were fascinated as much as I was with some of the demos that Nelson showed. In brief, if you want to sum it all up, people do 4 things online. They use information, they communicate, they get entertained, and they become social, right? So for you just to quickly understand the size of what's going on information, since the dawn of humanity, since the first human appeared on Earth, until the year 2003, the whole human race generated what we estimate to be 5 exabytes of information. If you don't know what an exabyte is more or less 1 million pickup trucks full of books from Shakespeare, okay? So until 2003, we generated 5 of those. Today, the world generates 5 exabytes every 2 days. Every 2 days, we generate as much information, and it's all uploaded to the web. When you think of the magnitude of information that Google has to index and build so that when you ask us a question in any language across the world, we answer you in a fraction of a second, like Nelson was showing us, you have to realize that this task is becoming a very, very complex task. It's not only the amount of information, it's also the type of information. You are reporters, so you love information, you love news, you love knowledge. And think of what you did in the past. Who of you actually uses Google to search for information when you're preparing an article? Of course, right? The idea is you have, I'm fascinated by economy, right, by economics. I study game theory online. I have all of Yale's universities economic courses available on YouTube University. I can go and see that today without subscribing to an economic course, and it's available for everybody. A small young child in high school student in India, or a US student, or somebody at Yale University. This level of democracy of information is truly changing the world in a way that we haven't seen before. This is driving 1.8 billion users to the internet. There are 4.6 billion people that have access to the internet today through mobile, and 1.8 billion that have access through fixed lines. The interesting part about this is that people are starting to get this access more in our side of the world than in the West. So most of the growth, 85% of all internet users are outside the Western community, outside Western Europe and US and Japan and so on, which is very interesting. You know, Ukraine has been the first in the globe to start rolling out fiber optics much earlier than Western world. And you can see that this is becoming a very democratic place when it comes to information. When it comes to communication, which was originally the start of the internet, remember email was the killer app in the 90s. You know, people like Hotmail, for example, have achieved 300 million users. The new way of communication is the always-on communication. People are communicating on Twitter, for example. Twitter today is more than 105 million users. 55 million tweets a day are going through Twitter. Now, what happens is, as people communicate on Twitter, they don't only communicate to people, they also communicate to machines. So there are now machines across the world, for example, that are measuring the pollution level in China, in the big cities, and tweeting that to people who are interested all the time, right? This level of communication is something we have never seen before, and it's just generating a scale that is enormous, because more than 50% of those users will check for tweets every day, and more than 50% of them, more than 60% of them will check for tweets from a mobile handset. Now, that is also driving a very interesting wave, which is really around social. Now, social is becoming very real. Any of you has a social friend on, you know, a social network that you've never met in your life? Yeah, okay. As a matter of fact, in countries that have had social networks for a long time, like the UK, for example, 1 of every 3 friends is a social friend, virtual friend, that you've never met in your life, which is a very interesting phenomenon. Social is becoming such an integral part of people's life. There are 400 million people on Facebook today, and some of the young generation don't understand their world in any other way. Because, for example, there was a story about 2 kids that fell in a landfall during the rain in Australia last year. And instead of using their mobile phone to call their mother to help them out, they update their Facebook profile so that their friends immediately rush to their rescue. This is how social is becoming so integrated in the young generation's world. Now think of Ukraine. 70% of people below the age of 20 are connected online. This is the world they're coming to. And of course, entertainment is a big thing, right? We've spoken about YouTube. Think of YouTube as the biggest next broadcast or TV channel. As a matter of fact, today, YouTube in the UK is the 4th largest TV channel. It's bigger than MTV, bigger than Sky Sports, bigger than Sky One. It's huge. There are almost 24 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute of every day. There are close to 500 million people coming to YouTube at least once a week to try and get their video content. And this phenomena is creating a totally different life. There are many people that don't actually use TV anymore. Now, when you think about what's happening on the internet, you realize that it's actually happening just like any other technology, really, but it's happening very fast. So these are the technology adoption curves of some of the technologies before, you know, print, TV, radio, and so on, okay? And the only difference is on the internet, things are happening within literally a few years. Think of YouTube and Facebook. They were nothing 4 years ago. They didn't exist, right? The speed at which those things are happening so fast. iPhones, so it's statistically, let's talk about this. TV took 13 years to reach their first 50 million users. Facebook and YouTube did that in less than 2 years. The iPhone did that in less than a year, okay? Now, the speed at which things are happening is very fast, but what you notice also from this curve is that every technology goes higher than the one before. So radio went above print, TV went above radio, and we expect that the internet will go above TV. from a user consumption point of view. The other interesting thing about this curve, which is normally not discussed, is the commercial side of this curve. So the curve goes through 4 stages, and it's very important to understand that. First, the technology is developed. So say the printing press is invented. Then the content is developed. People use it to print a lot of newspaper. Users start to buy those newspapers, and when there are enough users, newspapers start to make money on advertising, right? When you look at the internet, believe it or not, at the size of the internet advertising today in Ukraine or anywhere in the world, we have just started. We are just getting to the point where advertising will actually start to become very big. It's been very successful in the last 10 years, but it will become much bigger in the next few years. So the message we're trying to tell our Ukrainian customers today is that as the technology changes, they need to change too, because technology is a world of tidal waves, as we call it, okay? So big waves happen, and if those big waves are not captured, you get crushed by them. So imagine if you are a business today that only is still advertising in print. You're not advertising in radio, you're not advertising in TV. What situation will you be in? And in light of the World Cup spirit, we thought maybe we will tell our customers today to think about the internet in terms of 4 ways to achieve big goals, okay? Number 1 is to never miss the easy goal, because there are so many easy things you can do on the internet today and grow your business. Number 2 is learn to be very skilled and very capable. Number 3 is remember that the internet is a very global platform, so how can you play across borders? And number 4 is what is the role of the internet in terms of your big overall strategy? And we're going to talk to them very quickly about each of those. I'm going to show you one example of each, just to give you an overview. So this is how easy it is to do business on the internet. This guy is an Indian taxi driver who used a phone camera to record a video of himself and put it on YouTube. This is the video.
Good morning. I am your taxi driver, Devesh Mishra. I live in Varanasi. I also make an arrangement for you, North India, Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh, Uttaranchal, and down towards Calcutta. I also make arrangement the hotels if you need.
Okay, so he did a few things. One is he spoke to 12 million people. 12 million people have seen this video. He's getting, at the end of the video, he's giving his phone number. He gets 100 calls a day of customers willing to take his service. He moved from being a taxi driver to being a tour operator because he arranges your hotel, he does everything for you, and he defined his territory. And he's actually very successful. This is how easy it is to do business on the internet. I will be showing examples of Axe and T-Mobile and other players in the business. But this is it. You just need to be there. And a lot of customers are missing the opportunity to be there. And I think it's very important to highlight how big of a difference that makes. This is a very easy goal. The second example I will want to share is about information. So as I said, you need to be skilled. You need to really understand how to be the best player on the internet. And while in the old days, people actually just put advertising out there and expected that users will come and buy their product, that's not the way the internet works. The internet is entirely based on information, knowledge, mathematics, and data. Let me show you an example, again, in the spirit of the World Cup. So this is an article that came by ESPN.com in the spirit of the World Cup saying, here are the top 50 football players in the world. They are claiming that Messi is more popular than Ronaldo. Okay, I'm not a big football fan. And basically, to me, as an internet person, I don't accept that. What I do is I go and check it out. So I use technologies that Google makes available for free, such as Google Insights for Search. And actually, it turns out that ESPN was correct when they spoke about this before the World Cup, because as you can see, you know, Ronaldo was actually the red chart, and he was doing better than Messi before the World Cup. But since the World Cup started, people are now much more interested in Messi than Ronaldo. Okay? This is measuring across the globe, across the football category. But this also has the fact that people started to search much more for football-related articles since the World Cup started. So if you actually take the relative growth, you will realize that the most popular player today is Kaká from Brazil. Okay? I can tell you that with absolute certainty because I know exactly how many people are asking to see things about Kaká every day. Okay? It's funny from which countries in the world those come. Sometimes you'll be surprised. Tunisia and Morocco seem to be very interested in Kaká. And you'll be surprised that India is not a cricket country anymore. When the World Cup starts, the interest in football in India becomes very big. Okay? I can share with you hundreds of examples, but it's to that level of accuracy that a business in Ukraine today can say, should I sell toothpaste or toothbrushes? Which is more interesting for the consumer in Ukraine today? You can even sometimes drill down to the level of a city. We then will talk about how global the internet is. And you know, I think the best example of how global the internet is airlines. So this is what British Airways does. British Airways realizes that people across the world are searching for information to organize their trips, right? I live in Dubai, and I would take around a month. On average, 29 days is the average on the internet where people plan for their holidays. And they want to capture me every step of the way. So I ran 3 queries before I came, which Google answered back in 0.17 seconds each. Okay? And I said, Dubai to London, and guess who's the first airline? British Airways. I asked about vacations in London, and BA flight to London was the first result. I asked about London theater. I want to go to a musical. And the first result is British Airways. When I show this to Emirates Airlines, they realize how much business they're losing. As a matter of fact, my wife just booked a ticket yesterday because BA showed up and said, summer campaign, when we asked about London. So this level of global interaction is actually changing the way things are happening. Customers need to realize today there are people selling in Ukraine that have never set foot in Ukraine in their life. There are people on the web today doing business across the globe. Finally, I will just share with you what it is that the internet is changing. So because a lot of people are saying, is the internet going to kill the newspaper industry? Is it going to kill radio? Is it going to kill TV? And the answer is absolutely no. Because the reality is, when radio started, people didn't stop advertising in newspapers. And when TV started, people did not stop advertising in radio. Okay? Every one of those categories has a very different capability. It brings a very different view to the businessman. So radio is the tool I would use to capture them when they're driving home. But when they're sitting relaxed watching their favorite show, I will build my brand on a TV ad. When it's time for an action, and they're actually buying that ticket, I will catch them on search, right? And what we're trying to explain to a lot of our customers is that by doing that, you start to capture the customer wherever he is, okay? We ran a study with General Motors on Pontiac at a point in time, where the red chart that you see here was the TV ads they were running, and the blue chart were how people searched for what they were advertising. So they spoke about a certain car on TV. People went and searched. And guess what was the #1 site that people clicked on? Honda. So every time Pontiac ran an ad, Honda was the site that was visited. Okay? When we showed this information to Pontiac, they started to blend their strategy, as I was just showing you there. Okay? They started to say, okay, I'm going to play TV, and then 5 minutes after TV, I'm going to start my search campaign, so I capture the users. When they land on certain sites, I'm going to show them a video. When they land on other sites, I'm going to show them a display banner. And then I'm going to ask them to call, and I'm going to give them a call to action, right? This is how the world is going to look like. And hopefully, as we start doing business in Ukraine, we're hopefully going to be able to help more and more businesses try to understand and realize that. So I will say our aim, hopefully, if we manage to do it well in those 2 days, is to help Ukrainian business benefit from Google's presence and the internet. And I will need to correct this font. So thank you for that. I hope I didn't take too much time, and I hope that will allow us a lot of time for questions.